Good evening. Welcome to the March 14th, 2016 meeting of the Rutherford County Regional Planning Commission. If you would stand with us, please. Commissioner Pettis Reed will lead us in our prayer and our pledge. Commissioner Reed.
Shall we pray? Our most gracious Heavenly Father, we are so thankful for the day you've given us, for this opportunity to gather. Father, we're thankful for this change of season, for the beautiful sunshine we've enjoyed today. And we're thankful for our county, for the many blessings that we have here that we do enjoy. But Father, may we always remember that the blessings that we do have and enjoy all come from you. We ask that you be with this commission, that you guide them and direct them. And Father, we ask that you be with all of us, that you give us the ability and wisdom to do the correct things that you want and to follow your leadership and your guidance. Be with us all. We offer this prayer in your Son's holy name. Amen. Let us pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. You may be seated. Thank you, Commissioner Reed. For those of you that didn't know, Commissioner Pettis Reed was a member of this Planning Commission for several years, and I just couldn't pass up the opportunity to put him to work. Thank you, Pettis. Would you call the roll, please, Gail?
Rhonda Allen. Here. Veronica Buchanan. Here. Jim Averwater. Here. Lee Bogle. Here. Will Jordan. Here. Mike Kusch. Craig Lynch. Here. Chip Pinion. Here. Charlotte P. Mike Vaught. Jeff Phillips.
Present.
Have a quorum.
Thank you, Gail. This time we need to approve the minutes from our February 22nd meeting. Calling our Vice Chair, Mike Kusch.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have reviewed the minutes. They seem to be in order, so I would make a motion to submit to the archives.
Have a motion and a second to approve those minutes. All those in favor of the motion, please say aye. Aye. That motion carries. Thank you. Any items withdrawn or deferred, Doug?
No, sir. Everything's still on the agenda.
Okay. Item number 6, rezoning requests that are scheduled for public hearings. 6A, the item number is 16-A005, Will Jordan. Location is Lebanon Pike. County Commission District is number 14, which is Charlie Baum's. The size of the site is approximately 10 1/4 acres. Tax map 47. Existing zoning is RM, which is residential medium density. Proposed zoning is CS, commercial services. Jordan.
Mr. Chairman, since this application I am involved in, I am going to adjourn to the seating area and not participate in any discussion or debate on this agenda item. Thank you.
Record will so indicate. Thank you, Will. Doug.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, thank you. I hope everybody's doing well tonight. I will call your attention to the iPads. We're going to utilize these again tonight. I think it's a good piece of technology, and we're excited to be able to use these. Just pointing out the files, just real quick, before we get into this application. The first file on there is the agenda, the whole agenda packet, and I think you have a paper copy as well, but that is the agenda packet. You'll see a couple pattern books after that, one for the Finley application and then one for the Landing application a little further along in this agenda. That fourth file there, that's PC _ and then today's date, that's actually going to be the same presentation you'll see up on the screen, so if you want to get a little closer view of some of those pictures, you'll be able to do that with that file. And then that last one that's titled emails, that goes along with the last application, the Finley application, so you don't have to worry about that one right now. This application that we're speaking about right now is located along Lebanon Pike. The applicant would like to rezone the property for the eventual use as a mini warehouse facility. Mini warehouses are only allowed by special exception in the commercial services zone. If this application were to be approved, the applicant does pursue that use. They do realize that they would have to go to the Board of Zoning Appeals for a special exception application. There's no concept plan at this time, but they are, of course, the applicants aware that the process moving forward, they would be required to provide that as time were to go on, again, should this be approved. As you can see, access to the property would be from Lebanon Pike. Many warehouses typically have lower traffic volumes associated with them than other non-residential uses. That being said, we will always look at possible traffic impact for these type of uses should this application be approved and it proceeds to that part of needing a site plan. Landscaping, proposed zoning that they're asking for would require a type 2 buffer adjacent to residentially zoned properties. You are aware also, we worked on some amendments to the regulations for mini warehouses late last year, which make it possible to use the backs of the buildings as part of the buffer if designed properly. So we would expect the applicant to take advantage of that. And of course, the performance standards in the zoning ordinance do apply to all non-residential uses, and this would be no exception. Just to show you the area, of course, there's the map on the screen there. Just to show you some of the surrounding area. This is looking, I guess this would be looking toward the northeast on the property. This would be looking toward the north. You can see there's an existing driveway to the adjacent property. This is looking on the property. This would be looking back down to the south and looking across the street. We did receive a couple of phone calls about this. Really the call that I had, the one call that I can remember fielding was, I would say, asking about process, about how the process works and everything, but I believe the person that called was calling for one of the landowners in the area. So with that, I'll be happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Thank you, Doug. Questions for staff?
Yeah, if you look at, I don't know if you can really see it, oops, wrong way, these pictures, no, not really. This is looking more toward the southeast, but yeah, it's really just right across. I mean, it's the big, you can see it in the background. It's easy to see. Actually, if you look on this map here, this is the property in question right here. This is the landfill right here. This is the river, right? Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Doug, on our map, it doesn't give the zoning of the property immediately adjacent to it.
Well, this RM right here, is this what you're talking about? Are you talking about, it's all, let me back up, I'll tell you what, let me back up just a little bit. It might be easier to see on this other map. Okay, this is the zoning map for the area. All this area through here is zoned RM. Even these adjacent tracks here are zoned RM. This across the street. This is heavy industrial. Again, that's where the landfill is. This is institutional. This is the VA hospital. Now, something to keep in mind, these properties right here, this is Cherry Lane. These properties are within the city limits of Murfreesboro. These were annexed. I believe there's a commercial fringe in the city, if I remember right. And of course, this is the Siegel Soccer Complex and park in this area. Did that answer your question? Okay.
Questions?
I have a question for Doug. Have you had any calls, negatives, positives?
Really just the one call that I recalled getting that I shared with you a moment ago. I think they had some concerns about how the process works, and they may have had some concerns about the application itself, but beyond asking about the process and how that process unfolded, I explained that. That was pretty much the extent of the conversation. They didn't go into any specific concerns that they had.
Doug, the nearest commercial services would be there at the intersection of Walter Hill. Is that the closest one as far as county zoned?
I would say that's probably right. Yes, sir.
Right.
Of course, I mean, you've got heavy industrial zoning right across the street here after this small little portion right here. This is all heavy industrial right here. But as far as actual commercial services zoning, like you said, from a county standpoint, it would probably be a little further up the road. Yeah.
Other questions for staff? Conduct our public hearing. At this time, I'll declare public hearing open for item number 16-A005. Anyone wishing to speak to this, please come forward.
I was the one caller.
Address, please. Address, please.
For the people I'm here for. It's for Matt and Maxine Henderson. They're located at 4767 Lebanon Pike.
Thank you.
I'm here to represent their interests. They are elderly. Majority of the property owners that are located adjacent or connecting to where the proposed mini warehouses are going to be are elderly, and so they may be at a disadvantage in coming to this hearing today and voicing their opposition. Some are already in Adams Place. Some are deceased where their mail is being forwarded to their heirs, siblings or children, what have you. Now, the zoning is for the mini warehouses. I'm not for sure. That may be it now. I'm not for sure if that will be that in the future. There is that issue. Where the property lays, as somebody did specifically state that it is across from the landfill, I'm not for sure what else you can do to the residents where this property is, because their values will plummet. It will continually decrease. So you have the landfill issue, and then mini warehouses. That's already been said that the volume of traffic will be consistently increasing, and I'm not for sure how much. There hasn't been an appraisal done as to the decline in the property values, but that would be an issue. As for spot zoning, it's beneficial for the property owner, detrimental to the neighbors, detrimental to the community. There does not, for a mini warehouse, to me, it doesn't seem that it bears a reasonable relationship to public health, the morals, safety, or welfare for the community. It's inconsistent with the surroundings as it is zoned residential. It does not conform to the comprehensive plan. My argument is that the rezoning is not in the best interest and it's not justified, and I'd request that the application be denied. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else wishing to speak for or against this zoning request?
Hello, my name is Clyde Roundtree with Huddleston Steel Engineering. I'm representing the client. As far as the concerns, what we're seeing along 231 South as well as North, two projects tonight are basically represent along that corridor. There's definitely significant growth going along, and as Murfreesboro continues to expand into the county, 231 is going to be under consistent pressure. And we feel like it's an appropriate request for CS zoning in this particular location, primarily because of its adjacency to Lebanon Pike. It's a road that can service the need. Mini storage, as Doug mentioned, is really a low impact on traffic. It's probably one of the lowest impacts on traffic, so we don't feel like traffic in particular is going to be an issue. And I feel like as far as the adjacent property values, the fact that the properties are across from the landfill, more than likely a lot of the development in the future is going to be towards commercial. It's going to be a less attractive development for any kind of residential development. So with that, we feel like it's consistent with how the growth of the city is going and the county as well. So to answer the questions as far as property value, I don't think it actually hurt property value. I think it could probably help property value, because as those properties get zoned commercially, they're going to go up in value. So I think there's a logic there, because anytime I really request a zoning, I'm always looking for what's the alternative. Is the alternative really a single-family development, and is that really going to happen across the street from the landfill? So with that in mind, we feel like it's consistent in that regard. We feel like traffic will be taken care of. And right now, spot zoning, it's happened a lot along that corridor versus more of a planned development. And so, again, we don't feel like that's inconsistent either to have that request. So with that in mind, we feel like it'll increase property values for the adjacent properties. I don't know what the intents of the Hendersons are and along that corridor, but most of those folks are large landholders, and they're going to have to make some decisions in the near future about what they really want to do with their land. But I do feel like it's going to go more towards commercial services along the way. As we said, there's already heavy industrial across the street, there's commercial fringe down the street, and there's institutional down the street. So with that in mind, we'd like to ask that you would respectfully approve this zoning request. Thank you.
There's a note here in the report that talks about 231 potentially being widened at some point. Have you taken that into consideration at all? I know it's not in the immediate future, but in terms of like where the building will be placed on the lot, are those any kinds of things you've already taken into consideration, that you might lose some of that road frontage?
We would, I mean, once the site, if it's approved for commercial services and we go ahead and get that special use permit, as Doug said we need to do, to go through the BZA, there will obviously be some kind of right-of-way we're going to have to respect. And I'm not sure, Doug, is that right-of-way in place now for the future expansion of 231?
Well, it's adequate right now. As far as a 5-lane, there may have to be some dedication to that, possibly.
Yeah, so I think the site planning process will bring that to light as far as exactly how much the setbacks are. And then the buffer requirements, as Doug mentions, a type 2 type buffer around the property. So the adjacent neighbors will be respected in that regard as far as how their land, how it looks. It is a commercial service zoning next to a residential zoning, but I do feel like that's going to be the trend in that area, going in that direction. Thank you. Any other questions for me? Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else wishing to speak for or against this rezoning request? Seeing no one, I'll declare the public hearing closed. Commissioners?
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion to approve, subject to all staff comments.
We have a motion to approve and a second, item number 16-A005. Any other questions or comments? All those in favor of the motion to approve, please say aye. Any opposition? The motion carries. Thank you. 6B, the item number is 16-A006. Thomas Holton. Location is Shelbyville Pike. County Commission District is 6. County Commissioner is Joe Frank Jernigan. Size of the site is approximately 43 acres. Tax map 179. Existing zoning is RL, which is residential low density. Proposed zoning is HI, heavy industrial. Doug.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, thank you. As you stated, this property is located along Shelbyville Pike. The applicant would like to rezone this property in order to relocate his existing business, which is located along Cobb Road. The applicant fabricates concrete pipes and other concrete items for construction projects. Since they do produce some concrete, it does fall under a heavy industrial zoning classification, which is why they're asking for the classification that they are. They have requested that the entire property be rezoned, although they don't anticipate actually using all the property. Access to the property would be from an existing shared access drive along Shelbyville Pike. Well, you'll see that here in a moment or so on those pictures. I think I got a decent shot of it. Staff has asked the applicant to explore the possibility of either working with the neighboring property to the south, where there's an existing median cut, to perhaps extend an access drive down to there to allow for better traffic flow for trucks wanting to go to the south toward Shelbyville, or perhaps moving an existing median cut to the north of the property, moving it down. So Mike Hughes and I discussed that with the applicant. I mean, that's not something that has to be decided tonight, but if this does move to site plan review, that is something that we would like to see explored. As far as landscaping is concerned, let me go back up one here. You can see that there's a variety of different zoning in this area. You'll see that there's heavy industrial. This is an existing concrete batch plant right here. There's also some light industrial zoning in this area as well. I'm not sure why it's not popping up there, but those common boundaries between industrial properties would not require any buffering, but if it were adjacent to residential uses, then, or residentially zoned property, then it would have to have a type 3 buffer. There is quite a bit of existing tree foliage on the properties. You can see, this is the label kind of blocks it out, but right in here, you can see that there's a good amount of trees back in here, so obviously those would be able to be used as part of that buffer. And of course, performance standards would be required to be adhered to as well. With that, I think we did have someone come in our office today inquiring about this zoning change that our assistant director spoke with. As far as any other phone calls, I don't recall receiving any on this application. Just to give you an idea, you can kind of see this is the existing drive right here. This is looking back north on Shelbyville Pike. This is where you can see the sign for Smyrna Ready Mix. This is the shared drive right in that area. This is looking across the street. You can see there's an existing business across the street. I believe it's a roofing company, if I remember correctly. This is looking down toward Shelbyville on Shelbyville Pike and looking onto the property. You can see the dense trees around the perimeter there. And that's, you can see in the background there is the existing concrete batch plant. Again, I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Doug, if we don't do the entire 43 acres, how much land did you say you would recommend initially?
My recommendation after looking at this, and this is kind of the discussion we had with the applicant, I thought, was maybe looking at half the property. My understanding is I really don't want to get into this tree line anyway, maybe just to this tree line back in that area. And that's kind of hard to see on the map, but maybe right in this area. I think that would give them, when they first came in, they were looking at maybe zoning just a small portion of it for their business, but then talked about maybe asking for a little bit more than what they need just for expansion. But when they submitted the whole application, it was for the entire property. So my thought, just, you know, again, my recommendation would be just maybe using half of the property and leaving this kind of alone for now. And if they want to expand over that in time, then they could come back and ask for another zoning application. But that's, again, just staff's recommendation.
When it's one parcel of land, it's not been subdivided and there's one owner, is that ever confusing to have half of the property zoned one way and another half zoned another? Or would you recommend that they record a different plat? Or I'm just curious.
I think a lot of it depends on a case-by-case situation. If it's a larger property like this, this might not be too bad. If we had our druthers, we would say break this one off and make the other one zoned residential. I don't know if we can necessarily require that. When you start getting into situations, and we've run into these before, where it's a smaller property and they're only rezoning a portion of it, you know, part of our comments when they bring a site plan is to cut that part out, so it eliminates that confusion. But like you said, in this situation, it might not be as big of a deal just because they're probably not wanting to use this back here anyway. So it might be okay just to leave that one.
Doug, this is heavy industrial, correct?
I'm sorry?
Heavy industrial.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Do you have the list of things that could be approved for heavy industrial?
Well, there's a variety in the zoning ordinance of things that can be approved for that. Of course, now I think kind of where you're going with this maybe is, you know, one of those uses would be, and I don't want anybody to have a fit about this, but one of the permitted uses in heavy industrial zones is adult entertainment. Now, that being said, adult entertainment establishments have to meet certain distance requirements from residentially zoned property and all other kinds of different uses and things, which quite frankly, this property, it's not big enough. You know, there's residentially zoned property immediately to the south, so it automatically would kick out any potential of that happening, so, as it's shown right here.
Also, one that raises some eyebrows, if heavy industrial would be a rock quarry.
Correct.
But if we approve the entire tract of land for heavy industrial, it's not qualified for rock.
Yeah, and for the same reasons, there's a lot of distance requirements for rock quarries that it's just not big enough property to qualify for that with the setbacks that are in the zoning ordinance.
So a lot of the even with the rezoning the whole piece of property, a lot of the things kill themselves, and we don't have to worry about them.
Right. It would still, yeah, a lot of those, the really more objectionable uses would still, you just couldn't do it because of those distance requirements. Right.
Doug, Chip was just informing me, because I was looking at this thinking we didn't want to allow access to Christiana Fosterville Road. He said there's a train track on that side that
there is.
Can't cross anyway.
You couldn't, right. Yeah, you wouldn't be able to get over that anyway. Right.
I was thinking, well, they could leave the back half residential and access it from that side, but I just want to point out there's no access from the back side.
And we discussed a little bit of that, about the possibility of maybe leaving a strip here to get to the back of the property if it was going to be left for residential purposes. That was actually something we talked about in the meeting we had prior to them making application. So yeah, they realized that too, that you couldn't access it from the back.
I'm just wondering what you do with that back piece of property if you let a concrete plant go in the front. Do you realistically live behind the concrete plant between there and the train tracks? Because I'm just thinking out loud here, you know, but I was all on board with cutting it in half until I realized there wasn't access from the back side.
Questions for staff? If not, we're ready for our public hearing. We'll declare public hearing open for item number 16-8 A006, Thomas Holton. Anyone wishing to speak, please come forward and state your name and address, please.
My name is Aggie Butts, and I own the property there on Polythicket. And am I hearing right? Are you saying something about he wanted to build concrete?
He wants to build he fabricates concrete pipe and different things like that for
Want to
construction.
build another one?
He wants to move his existing business out to this property, correct?
Okay, so if I decide to build a house on my property, would that do anything, mess with my property?
You could, your property is adjacent to the south, is that what I heard you say? Or where is your property?
Right there on the side, going down on the side of, and all the way across there.
It wouldn't affect your property. I mean, this zoning wouldn't affect yours. It's only for his property. So if you wanted to build a house down there and, you had adequate soils for septic and all that, you could still do that.
It wouldn't be that close to it?
Well,
Can you
I'm
show
not-
me on the map where it would be?
Well, I can try. I'm not exactly sure where your property, this is the property in question. This is the, can you see that pointer? Is that coming up? No. This is the concrete plant, the existing concrete plant right here.
My property is right there.
Right, out here or down here? I'm sorry? Polythicket? Oh, Polythicket. It's a little further. Yeah, this is Polythicket right here.
All
Yeah.
that's Polythicket.
Right, this is
Right
Polythicket.
there on the side of Polythicket.
Down in this area? When you come to the intersection, I guess you turn left?
Come from Chevrolet Highway.
Okay. Like you're coming toward
Turn
Murfreesboro or going out from Murfreesboro?
No, you turn left off of Chevrolet Highway.
Okay, so you're
Go
coming,
down there, right behind
going toward Shelbyville?
Uh-huh.
Okay,
You turn
okay.
off, yeah.
So you're down in this area, I think. This is kind of where you're talking about.
I think maybe the property she's talking about is after you turn off on Polythicket Road, and her property is in behind where the Midway trailers.
Okay.
First, that's a trailer place right there.
No, that's not mine.
You the first one
Behind
behind it?
it.
The first one behind it?
Uh-huh.
Okay, choose that. You got your corner right behind those two CGs.
On that side.
Right, wait, yeah, I think that's it right there.
Right here? Okay,
So I
There's
wouldn't
a
even,
piece of property.
I wouldn't
Yeah,
connect.
there's a piece of property between them.
okay, right.
Okay.
There's a
that's all.
piece of property in between her, in between her and this piece of property.
Yes, there's a large tract right here, and if this is her property, then there's a large tract between the two. That's correct.
Yes, yes.
Thank you, Ms. Butts. Anyone else wishing to speak?
Hello again, my name is Clyde Roundtree, host of Steel Engineering. I'm representing the client on this particular rezoning. And as far as the reason we asked for the whole property is pretty much what Mr. Jordan said. Once you split it, it becomes a kind of a landlocked parcel back there that we really don't have access to. And again, it comes down to adjacent zoning. The fact that there is a heavy industrial right next to this particular piece of property kind of catalyzed us heading that direction. Originally, we were going for light industrial, but when Mr. Demosi found out that have some cement mixing capabilities, he felt like that was something that was more inclined towards heavy industrial, just like it is heavy industrial with the concrete plant next door. So with that in mind, we'd like to ask respectfully that the whole property can be rezoned. If that's an issue, our client needs at least 25 to 26 acres of the property zoned heavy industrial to accommodate the needs for an expansion of his business. And that's why he's moving over primarily to allow his business to expand, and he would love to have the ability to do that in the near future as well. He also provided me with a petition that basically all the adjacent homeowners have signed, or property owners, not necessarily homeowners, and we don't have multiple copies, but it's about 10 different signatures that are the surrounding property that said they were in favor of this. If you have any questions for me, I'm available for you. Thank you.
You're going to keep that report, or you're going to pass it around? Thank you. Any questions for the engineer? Thank you. Anyone else wishing to speak for or against this rezoning request? If not, I'll declare the public hearing closed on item number 16-A006. Commissioners?
Chairman, my question, I think right now is directed to Mr. Hughes. Do you have any drainage concerns, runoff concerns?
Not so much for the rezoning. There is a small sinkhole right in this corner right here we'll address at the site plan. And the other concern I had would be for the site plan review as well is the median cut. There's a median cut, I believe, up in this area. And then another one a little bit farther down on the adjacent property. With the large semi-trucks pulling out of there, I'd like them to coordinate with TDOT, maybe adding a median cut or moving one to that location so a truck that needs to go south to Shelbyville won't have to do a U-turn in one of those median cuts. They can just pull straight across and out. But other than that, just for the zoning issues, nothing. Just the standard.
From a stormwater quality standpoint, I have just a little bit of knowledge on concrete pipe manufacturing, and I can tell you it is a dusty process. Not only the manufacturing, but then yarding it, you typically do it on a gravel lot, which gets packed really hard because of all the weight. You basically have soil that turns into impervious soil, and you have a lot of fine dust. So the nature of that kind of manufacturing also leads to when you have a heavy rain or water from the plant tends to mix with that almost pure cement dust and turns into a runoff nightmare. And I'm just wondering if some kind of settling basin or something.
They would probably have a number of settling basins with their site plan to address that very issue. And we would have to, for the site plan, also look at the dust control as well.
I'm not opposed to the project, but I just want to warn everybody that is
Right.
a dusty process.
Right. And there, I'm sure there'll be state permits involved with that will be needed as well.
Typically, you have to almost water it down every day with water trucks a couple times a day just to control the dust.
So the environmental concerns, what Mike was suggesting, the environmental concerns that relates to water and drainage and dust.
Yes, sir.
And noise abatement will also be addressed at site plan?
Yes, sir. They'll also look at that too.
Okay.
And lighting. I mean, everything.
Okay, thank you.
Well, I'm gonna go back to my earlier concern is if you zone the front part of this property heavy industrial, you know, that's not a residential piece of property behind there anymore. I mean, there's a concrete plant right next door. There's the CG up a little farther up was an automotive parts storage or something like that. I think that's
That effect, I
out
forget
of
exactly
business
what.
now, but that's been, there's light industrial right adjacent to it also. I'm just not completely on board with cutting the track in half because that's not a spot for anybody's going to build a house in the back. So if the time's appropriate, I'm going to make a motion to rezone the entire piece of property as applied, subject to all staff comments except the cutting of the track in half.
Okay. And we have a second, right, Craig? Okay. Any other questions? Ready to vote? All those in favor of the motion to approve item number 16-A006, please say aye. Any opposition? Motion carries. Thank you. 6C, the item number 16-A007, George and Regina Lanning. The location is 4657 Rucker Christiana Road. Commission district is 6. County Commissioner is Joe Frank Jernigan. Size is approximately 19 acres. Tax map 149. Existing zoning is RM. Proposed zoning is a PUD, planned unit development for a retreat. Doug?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, thank you. As you stated, this property is located along Rucker Christiana Road. The applicants would like to rezone their property for use as a retreat also known as an event venue. There's an existing 2,400 square foot structure on the property, and we'll have some pictures of it here in a moment you'll be able to see. That will be used for weddings and other social events. The original pattern book, when we did these comments, didn't specifically state the total number of events to be held per year. But since we've written these comments, we've received a revised pattern book, and they anticipate around 50 events, not just weddings, but other corporate events and things like that. I'm sure the applicant's representative will get into that in a little more detail. I will also call your attention again that a copy of the pattern book, the newest one, is on your iPads as well if you want to follow along. Of course, with these new regulations that we approved last year for retreats, the reason they're coming before you for rezoning as opposed to the Board of Zoning Appeals for a special exception is because the number of events that they'd like to have is greater than 30. Maximum capacity of the existing structure would be about 100 people. Possibility of it being increased if fire protection can be added, namely sprinkler systems. The fire chief and building codes director are both aware of this facility and have talked with the applicant about this, and they understand that at this point, without the sprinklers, they would be limited to 100, and they're fine with that. There plan to be 1 to 2 employees associated with the business, no overnight accommodations, and security and traffic would be provided on a case-by-case basis. Access to the property, of course, would be from Rucker Christiana Road. The conceptual plan that you see in the pattern book shows an area for approximately 106 parking spaces. There does appear to be adequate space for additional parking, even if it's needed. With the limited number of folks that they're proposing for the events, it looks like that would be more than enough. Consistent with the regulations for retreats, the parking areas do not have to be paved, but they'll work with staff to make sure that any surface material, be it grass, gravel, whatnot, is acceptable during the site plan review stage should this be approved. Plan development applications are expected to, at a minimum, meet landscaping standards in Chapter 11 of the zoning ordinance. That being said, the applicant will continue to live on the property, so a strict application of the standards may not be appropriate necessarily for this case. There are a number of existing trees on the property that the applicant will keep to utilize as a buffer. They have been planting some trees as well along further in the back as they go. We would like to see a little more landscaping maybe along that eastern line next to the Windy Meadow subdivision. As you can see from the picture on here, this area back through here, just they farm this back in here, so this isn't going to be part of anything, so this will remain in its current condition as you see. And of course, any performance standards would be applicable to this as well. Really, the biggest issues for this would be the light and the noise, which the applicant's representative will go into more detail when he gives his presentation on the pattern book. There was a neighborhood meeting that was held on this application last, I believe it was Monday, I believe. Staff was present. There's about 10 to 15 people from the neighborhood and around the surrounding area that were there. The Lannings were present. I thought they did a really good job, kind of outlining what they were proposing to do. There were some questions. I didn't get the impression, though, that anybody was really in opposition to the request. So with that, I'll be happy to answer any questions that you may have. Let me just run through the presentation real quick. There's actually 2 entrances on the property. This is from the main entrance where their mailbox is, but this is looking back to I guess this would be to the east-northeast. This would be looking across the street. It's looking back down to the west. That's neighboring property. That's their house right there on the property. I'm sorry for the fuzziness of the photo. I thought I took a better shot than that, but that's the existing structure that they're referring to. And that gives you just a little different vantage point. That's from the end of the other driveway that's on the property. So it's when you look at and that's just in the background, you can see the subdivision in the background. But you can see kind of here, you can see the driveway here. And I think that structure, I guess this picture's a little older than I thought, but the structure's right about in this area. So with that, I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Doug, you mentioned something about number of events. Do you have any idea what the plan is?
What they're looking at right now is right around 50 different events. Like I said, not necessarily every one of them being a wedding every weekend or anything, but maybe, as they stated in the neighborhood meeting, the possibility of having maybe corporate events or something like that during the day, something to that effect.
Average of 1 a week, something like that.
Something to that effect, yes, sir.
You also mentioned the fact that they would still live on the property. What difference does that make if they were to move at some point in time?
Well, as the application is presented today as a planned development, it's not necessarily required that the owner does live on the property. I think it's good in this case because the folks that own the venue are right there. So I think it provides kind of the maximum of oversight and security myself if they are present.
Doug, I see one of the, what they plan on using the porta potties.
Yes.
And I can't envision a bride using a porta potty. If they want to come back for restroom facilities, do they have to come back to us, or how do they, to build on, or?
If they were wanting to make like a small addition of a restroom or something like that, I don't necessarily know if that would have to come back. Now, if they wanted to do a fairly large expansion to the building, which included restrooms, it would almost be kind of a case by case. If all they were doing was the restrooms, that's not really an expansion as far as I'm concerned. But if they wanted to increase the capacity from 100 to 200, which also included restrooms, that's a different situation in my mind.
So if they're just doing
So that
restrooms,
would have to come
they
back.
wouldn't have to come back through this process,
Right.
would not? Okay.
Right. If it was just restrooms, I don't think it's as big of an issue.
Doug, I also see that the park is going to be on grass. And with it being a PUD, is that why that's okay? Because typically we wouldn't approve of parking on grass.
Right, well, the way we structured the ordinance, basically what we did, we did take out the requirement that it would have to be on a paved surface. In this situation, and in those areas where it's a more rural environment, we thought it would be okay to kind of work with staff for them to look at it, and we could say, okay, what are you proposing to use? Do we think gravel would be a better alternative than grass? And we could work with the applicant at that point. So at this point, they're proposing grass. And the applicant, that came up during a neighborhood meeting, and they'd stated that those, where the parking area is, the ground's pretty well drained. It all kind of flows toward the back of the property. He said if it was further in the back, it might be an issue, but up toward the front, he didn't feel it'd be that. But that's something we can monitor as time goes on.
We had seen something that was even more developed than this is anticipated to be. And we had concerns about access when you have a large group of people in there, maybe a wedding event, maybe the ground's muddy, people are trying to park along the side of this gravel road, and then we have to get an emergency vehicle in there. And the ambulance or fire truck, whatever, does not have the ability to move down this road freely and get in there and maneuver, turn around, get loaded. So I have concerns about that aspect of it. Is there going to be a site plan that's going to?
Yes, there will be, and the applicants are aware of that. There is a required site plan showing the parking areas, maneuverability, those kind of things. Now, since the structure is already in existence, it may not be something that would have to come back to the Planning Commission if they're just showing parking area, but that is something that is required, and that's something that we put in the regulations, that site plans consistent with the Chapter 14 regulations are required for these type of structure and these type of venues. So that, yes, there will be a site plan.
I have a question, Mr. Chairman, to Doug or whoever can answer. You know, several months ago, we had multiple debates about these kind of activities, and I thought that they were required to have public restrooms, indoor plumbing. That I didn't know that that was an option that Craig alluded to with the porta potties. Am I remembering wrong, or?
Well, pull up the regulation here so I can read it to you.
If I remember correctly, Doug, that was if they did not go for the PUD. We always held the PUD out as the option that they could go to if they wanted more events or et cetera, et cetera. So that's how I remember it.
Well, but they're saying they're going to have for sure over 30.
No, that's why they're going to the PUD.
Okay.
Well, basically what we did for this, of course, as part of their package when they submit, we did ask them to identify how they would handle different issues, one of them being provision of restroom facilities. Now, as far as the actual requirements go, just kind of scanning through here, the way we handled that, essentially was any structures to be used in connection with the retreat shall comply with adopted building and fire codes for the county and fire and rescue departments, those kind of things. And then all regulations enforced through other agencies, be it federal, state, or other local authorities, would have to be met, which would include building code, fire code, health department regulations, groundwater protection, those kind of things. So there's nothing in here that just says absolutely that you have to have a actual bathroom facility. Now, if the building code requires it, then that's something that they would have to find a way to provide. So now I do know that in neighboring counties, we had a session on this at our last planning retreat, and as I recall, it seems like one of our neighboring counties in particular was actually getting away from that and going toward, yes, you have to have some sort of a permanent bathroom on site. We didn't incorporate that into our regulations. So if the state is okay with it and building code is okay with it, then that is a provision they can make, or at least ask for.
Other questions for staff? Ready for our public hearing? This time I'll declare the public hearing open for item number 16-A007, George and Regina Lanning. Anyone wishing to speak, please come forward. State your name and address, please.
Hi, my name's Clyde Roundtree, the Huddleston Steel Engineer, and I'm representing the Lannings on this particular project. As far as some of the concerns that were expressed, I would just like to kind of say the nature and the stage of where the Lannings are at in this process. They're in the catering business, and they've seen the need for this kind of facility that has arisen. In their particular area, they would be unique in terms of having a location that could really service that Christiana area. And their request is just to have the ability to grow the business there potentially to where they can have up to 50 events or more. But the issue is they don't want to limit themselves initially. They've done some due diligence in terms of finding out what it would take to do fire protection, if they have to get the restroom facilities. All those are cost prohibitive right now in terms of the way the business is staged. But if it grows, they're very anxious about possibly enhancing the facility to accommodate those types of needs. So with that in mind, they've used the facility for a wedding. They felt like it worked very well. Our neighborhood meeting was well attended. A lot of people are concerned about other issues, is our road going through the property, what have you. One neighbor did have some concerns over the use in the evening, but there is a pretty substantial buffer. There's a natural buffer that's going to stay consistent as it is. It's going to stay the same. The back of the portion of the property is used for agriculture, so there's no development back towards the portion of property where they were concerned about. And the Lannings, as Mr. Demosi has presented, they've already started doing some planting to kind of supplement that buffer along that adjacent neighborhood. It's a pretty wide open space out there, plenty of room for parking, nice access, nice driveway. And as Doug said, they're going to be living on the property, so they're really going to police it well and make sure anything that happens on the property is something they can live with because they live on the property. So if you have any questions specifically for me, I'd be glad to answer them.
Doug, how do we get access to their plan book? You mentioned that was in this iPad.
I'm sorry?
How do we get access to the plan book you said was in here?
Are you on the main page there? If you're on the main page, you'll see there's a file that says Lanning Party Barn Final Pattern Book. You just click on that.
Hey, how do I get back to the main page? This one? No, that's not it. Yes, ma'am.
If they want to increase the size, like Doug said, you have to come back through this process again, anything other than just probably restroom facilities.
Yes, I believe that's, yeah, if they're going to try to double the facility or they find a need for higher capacity. The fire protection, I believe, gets them up. The building capacity is probably closer to 150 to 200 based on just overall, capacity, but really fire protection is what's dictating that. And so I don't think if they got fire protection, they could probably have more people, but if they wanted to expand the facility, that would require probably going through another process of site planning.
Yeah, and they're shooting for 50. I mean, they're shooting for one a week.
Yeah, and with that in mind, one of the things, because he's in the catering business, he's got exposure to corporations that are looking for midweek off-site kind of strategy sessions or company picnics. So it's not all evening, weekend functions. So, I'd say rather than looking at every weekend, there may be a series of 3 days in a row that there may be a corporate function out there, and then there's nothing that weekend. So that just provides them a lot of flexibility if they can host something during the day, or some sort of a church event during the week. There's just a lot of opportunity. There's not a lot of meeting spaces out in that area, so they will be filling a niche that would probably really serve the community well.
Yeah, I think it looks good. I think it's great, and we went to a lot of trouble going through to try to develop policies for this. And I can't believe we overlooked the restroom part, but that's okay.
Thank you. Anyone else wish to speak for or against this rezoning request? Seeing none, I'll declare the public hearing closed. Commissioners?
Doug, did we, in our discussions past, are we able to limit hours of operation because of noise concerns?
Yes, it's in the ordinance right now. The cutoff for noise, amplified noise, is 10 o'clock.
Okay.
As is any exterior, like flood lighting, those kind of things. 10 o'clock's the cutoff for that.
Obviously falls into that.
Yes, it'll have to fall into that, yes, sir. And it's actually in the pattern book toward the end, one of the last pages, I think they mentioned it in there.
Mr. Chairman, I'm familiar with the applicants, and they're very involved in our community. And looking at this, I think this is ultimately what we intended when we put this together. They have done a good job of presenting this information tonight. Like I said, a few small concerns that I think can be handled on the site plan. So without further ado, I'll make a motion that we approve this application subject to all staff comments.
I have a motion and a second to approve item number 16-A007. Any other questions or comments? All those in favor of the motion to approve, please say aye. Any opposition? Motion carries. Thank you. 6D, the item number is 16-A002, Scott Findley. Location is 6885 Williams Road. Commission district is 8. The county commissioner is Pettis Reed. Site of the site is approximately 9 acres, tax map 181. Existing zoning is RL, residential low density. Proposed zoning is a PUD, planned unit development for a baseball training facility. Doug.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, thank you. The applicant originally constructed the ball field. You can kind of see the location of the ball field here on the property on the map here. This is about the basic location of where the field is. The field was originally constructed on the property for use by his children. Over time, use of the field expanded to the children's teams for practices, games, etc. The applicant applied to the Board of Zoning Appeals for a special exception for a home-based business back in 2014 in order to expand the use of the property and to build an accessory structure for an indoor baseball training facility. There were a number of 3 different exceptions or exemptions to that were applied for, as well, as far as the number of people on site at one time, the size of the structure to be used for the facility, and then also a sign on the building, which is not being utilized at this point. Staff recommended to the applicant, even at that point, and ultimately to the Board of Zoning Appeals, that the request would be better served as a PUD application. The applicant decided to go ahead and move forward with it as it was, and the Board of Zoning Appeals ultimately did approve the special exception as it was presented. The applicant does now desire to expand the use of the property to host a full range of baseball, softball, youth programming. As you can read, this was from his application, from batting and fielding skill development to hosting small venue tournaments. The applicant has indicated he would limit the number of teams in a tournament to 6. Tournaments would run from April through October, the warmer months, general time frame. And when these comments were presented, they were going to include no more than 20 events. The advised pattern book that you have actually has limited that down to 8, but again, when we wrote these comments down, 20 was the number that we were using. The applicant has stated further that there wouldn't be tournaments every weekend. Games would run from about 9 a.m. till about a half hour before dusk. Tournaments would concentrate on 5 through 8-year-old boys and girls. The applicant also provides opportunities for a rental of the facility and the field for practices, birthday parties, etc. The applicant was originally going to request field lighting, but that has been removed from this application. You'll see, again, the pattern book on your iPads, and I also put the applicant's website in there for your reference as well. There was a neighborhood meeting that was held on the property on January 26th. There were a number of neighbors who were in attendance, and there were a number of concerns that were raised, including traffic, amount of activity already occurring on the property, the possible lighting of the field, again, which has been removed, possible sound amplification, and others. This was originally going to be heard at last month's Planning Commission meeting, but due to the number of comments and issues that still needed to be resolved, staff recommended that the applicant push this off to a different meeting, and they elected to do so. Access to the property would be from Williams Road. There are no improvements to Williams Road identified on the county's long-range transportation plan. The applicant does propose to utilize an existing gravel drive for the parking, as well as identifying areas that you can see on their pattern book adjacent to the driveway for additional parking. They did provide a little bit more detail. Staff still isn't necessarily convinced that there's going to be enough parking. You can see that in our staff recommendation. Landscaping at a minimum should conform again to Chapter 11 of the zoning ordinance. They do show some existing buffer areas, but don't go into detail necessarily as to additional measures that would be taken. But again, we would want to see additional buffering around these additional property lines here should this application be approved. And again, the performance standards as listed. I'm not going to read my recommendation word for word, but our basic concerns were the number of parking spaces that were going to be provided. We still had concerns that there was going to be enough considering the number of teams that were going to be on the property, and the fact that they all have family and friends that like to come see them play. Staff can see that becoming a possible issue. Also, staff does feel that this is probably going above and beyond what was originally intended for this property at the Board of Zoning Appeals, and we have our concerns that this meets the criteria for planned developments. But just go through the pictures here on the property. This is looking, I guess this would be toward the east on Williams Road. This is looking across the street. This would be looking toward the west, looking on the property. That's the applicant's house right there in the foreground. You can see the structure in the background. I'll get to that. There's a better shot of that here. That's a shot of the actual field, and that's a shot of the building. Just to point out again, the pattern book is on your iPads, as well as some correspondence the staff did receive regarding this application for your review as well. With that, I know the applicant is present, and we'll be happy to answer any questions you may have at this time.
Questions for staff?
Doug, what he has now, BZA gave him the right to use the indoor facility. Is that correct?
Correct. Yes, sir.
He's got that now.
Yes, that's been approved. Yeah, that's regardless of what happens tonight, he still has that.
He's got the indoor, but not the outdoor.
Correct.
Other questions for staff? Ready for our public hearing? We've had 3 different requests tonight. For those of you that are present, very few folks spoke, so I'm assuming the majority of you folks are here for this rezoning request. let me kind of go over our guidelines with you so that everyone will have the opportunity to speak that wishes to. We'd like for you to limit your comments to about 3 minutes. If you run over a little bit, no one's going to arrest you. And if you're speaking for a group, a larger group, just let me know and I'll give you all the time that you need. But if you could, please try to hold your comments to around 3 minutes so that everyone will have the opportunity to speak. At this time, I'll declare the public hearing open for item number 16-A002, Scott Findlay. Anyone wishing to speak, please come forward, state your name and your address, please.
Hi, my name is Clyde Roundtree with Huddleston Steel Engineering, and thank you again for hearing our request. And I'm up here just to really kind of talk to you a little bit about the evolution of this project. I think what you're going to hear tonight, there's going to be a lot of different issues related to this particular project. But one of the things that happened, and we want to make sure it's clear, is the ball field was birthed out of a need. It wasn't really a financial proposition or a business development proposition or a way to just make a living. It was really, Scott is a passionate baseball player, and he's got a lot of kids that are passionate about the game. And what happened was as he tried to find field time in the area, he couldn't get field time. And the field times he got were, a month apart, and they're in the evenings. It wasn't opportune for families. And so basically Scott took the initiative to say, well, we're going to make our own field because we have to have a place to play. And it really fulfilled a need. Obviously, from what's going on out there, it's filled a strong need for the local community. And so that's the first thing we want you to understand. It wasn't a matter of just going, hey, we're just going to do this and see what happens. It was really birthed out of a true desire to meet the needs of kids in the area to play ball. As far as the hitting facility is concerned, that's what he got the small business approval for. And that's a first-class facility. If you walked inside, we actually have our neighborhood meeting inside the facility just because it's impressive. I mean, I've been around a lot of baseball facilities, and it's first class. So Scott's always been concerned about making sure the quality of the product's really, really strong. So the kids have a great experience. And he's experiencing a lot of success in the actual hitting facility. As far as the ball field's concerned, he went to the expense last year of turfing the baselines, turfing the infield. I mean, really making it as a usable surface as possible. And so as we went through the idea of developing the pattern book, which was really under Doug's leadership saying we needed to go through the PE process, the first thing that came up was, how much can the facility be used? And the neighbors' concerns were obvious, lighting, traffic, noise, those kind of things. And lighting was the first thing we said at the neighborhood meeting. We just nixed that because that would just push the playtime too much into the evening potentially. And so we said that's a fair concession. And then it came down to traffic and how that's going to work. And Mr. Finley was more than willing to. He's got a lot of experience with tournaments, and the field's been sanctioned, which means it's a bona fide field to host a tournament. But we said, well, if you only have a certain amount of teams and you stagger the start times, and really as far as the impact on Williams Road, we could really minimize that by making sure, 2 teams come early, then the next team show up, so your last teams won't be on the campus at the same time. So really that was an effort to try to make sure that traffic was mitigated for. And then as far as, a concern that the neighbors said, well, what about the trash and all those things associated with an event? The pattern book states that any of the refuse, any of the trash that's generated from any kind of tournament play would be off the property within 24 hours. You just get that taken care of. And also, after any kind of tournament event, that he would police Williams Road to make sure that any trash that may be related to his product would be something that he would handle. So we wanted to make sure we're as good as neighbors as possible in terms of the impact of the facility itself. Now, as far as tournaments are concerned, Scott's always said 20, just because 20 was a number that was just out there. But the reality is, much like the Landys, he didn't want to limit himself, because what if the need is there to provide those kind of tournaments? But as we move through this process, he's down to 8 tournaments a season, and really, even more specifically, once a month, that there wouldn't be any more than 1 tournament out there a month. That's just to provide a place and give the neighbors space, so it's not something every weekend that they're going to have to kind of contend with. And so that way he allows the need to be met for tournament play and for kids to use the field, but also doing his best to be a good neighbor with those along Williams Road. The neighborhood meeting had a lot of interest, as Doug said, is well attended, lots of concerns. But at the same time, some of the adjacent neighbors didn't have any issue with it in terms of they didn't really even know what was going on with the hitting facility or with the ball field. So what you're going to hear tonight is, lots of different things. But I wanted to give you a brief history about how it kind of generated, because I think sometimes we think something's just for profit and, it's like a money grab. But really, this was really based out of a need that kind of evolved, and Mr. Finley, as the need evolved, he met the need. And candidly, if he wanted to, he could have a tournament out there every weekend because the need's that heavy. And the facility could be used night and day. That's the kind of demand that's out there for these kind of facilities. But I want to appeal to you just thinking about the motivation behind why he did it versus what's actually been done and how the neighbors may be responding. So with that in mind, I'm open for any questions. I'll probably end up coming back up to kind of address some of the neighbors' concerns if need be. But if you have anything for me initially, I'd be glad to answer that.
Mr. Roundtree, so your client felt there was a need. The county also has a need, so can you produce the building permit he applied for, and can you produce the plans we approved for this ball field?
As far as building permit, I'm not sure where that is, Scott. Is that something we can produce? Okay, the field was originally built for personal
But now
use.
he wants to turn it into a commercial venture. So he's built a field without permission from the county, basically. Is that correct?
That'd be correct. And I think, again, that's kind of why I want to talk about the evolution of the project, that it kind of morphed versus really being a for-profit kind of proposition off the initial inspiration.
Thank you. Doug, I think we've just gone over the history. Can you refresh our memory? Hopefully you've looked at it, but back when this was talked about several years ago, my memory tells me that a lot of neighbors were concerned about noise and outdoor activities, and that's when everything was combined to the indoors and no outdoor activities to satisfy those concerns. So is my memory correct on that, commissioners that were around here at that time?
Well, this was never heard. This went to the Board of Zoning Appeals, so it wouldn't have come to the Planning Commission at that point. Some of the concerns, and I included the minutes from the meeting, that Board of Zoning Appeal meeting, in your agenda packets just for your reference. But, most of the concerns that were brought up, are similar to some of the concerns we had, quite frankly. The number of people, the traffic, those kind of things. Of course, noise when it comes down to our performance standards in the zoning ordinance for a residential use don't necessarily apply to other residential uses, as it was just a home-based business. So they would apply with a commercial development, though, with planned commercial development, so that would kick in. But I'm not sure if I'm answering your question or not, Mr. Chairman.
No,
but,
I may have this confused with something else. Maybe I have. So I remember one practice facility coming before us, and I was thinking maybe this was it.
You might be talking about the Mustangs years and years ago, and unfortunately that was prior to my time here with the county, so I don't have a whole lot of information on that.
There's one Mr. Powell put in over on Midland Road, it's only a few miles from here.
Right. There was that.
With an indoor
Right.
batting facility.
There was that one, that's correct.
That's the one.
And that was strictly indoor, yes, sir. That one I was here for, and that was a strictly indoor facility, that's
Very
correct.
good. Thank you. Anyone wishing to speak forward, please come forward and state your name and address, please.
Good afternoon, members of the Planning Commission. I'm glad to be here tonight. My name is Michelle Blaylock-Hauser. I resided at 7167 Williams Road, and I'm here to speak to you all. Same to you, Mr. Chairman, and to those individuals who are here. I do have some documentation that I would like to pass out to the board members if permitted, please. It's never comfortable to come before individuals and talk about our neighbors because we're supposed to love our neighbors as ourselves. I certainly find myself in a very uncomfortable position in coming before you all here today. I'm an attorney by trade, and I'll be honest with you, I'm a whole lot more comfortable coming in front of judges in front of y'all instead of y'all. However, especially with regard to the nature of these proceedings, it definitely is very uncomfortable for a lot of us as neighbors to come before you. However, the reason that I'm beginning with regard to this is that I have handed out to you a formal complaint and a request for a rescission of the current permit that's held by Mr. Finley on behalf of Show Me Athletics. Unfortunately, we find ourselves in a position to where we as neighbors are continuing to have to deal with these issues regarding Show Me Athletics. In fact, Mr. Finley and Show Me Athletics has not been complying with the requirements that the ordinances of the Rutherford County Planning Commission has strictly upheld. You will see in this particular packet, we now have drainage issues as a result of land movement that has happened on that particular property to enhance this field. I will take exception with what Mr. Roswell had to say with regard to the reason why this particular project was birthed. The reason that this project was birthed was not because of a need, because I can tell you that every single one of those members out there don't have children that play on these particular teams on Williams Road. The need was that of Mr. Finley, because unfortunately Mr. Finley found himself in a position that he was no longer able to participate with the Murfreesboro city leagues because of some questions of dishonesty. And that's ultimately what brings me here before you all today. This is more about credibility, and we as neighbors trusted Mr. Finley to have a neighborhood ball field that has now just continually gotten bigger and bigger and bigger to the point that it's now to our detriment. You'll be amazed to find out that my name is probably on the petition that Mr. Finley ultimately produced. The reason for that is because when Mr. Finley presented to my door, he told me that it was only because he was putting AstroTurf down on his ball field, and that's why he wanted me to be able to sign it. He made no mention of trying to make a PUD development out of this particular site. So when it really comes down to it, it's about credibility, and it is the neighbor's opinion that Mr. Finley has not been credible with either us or with you all as a board. Unfortunately, he has moved great portions of earth that have caused lots of drainage problems. You would see in a lot of those pictures that I've provided to you, the standing water that now is ever present. We have problems with noise because he has numerous teams that have come out to play on a regular basis, and I can tell you that's probably every Saturday. He has so much confidence in the fact that he plans to go forward with this particular plan regardless of what I think this board has to say, in that he's advertised upon the internet these particular tournaments. The very tournaments that you all are here to determine whether or not he can have, he's already advertised. He thinks it's a done deal. If you'll also look in there in that packet that I gave to you, he's already began to clear out trees for his for the parking facility if he are allowed to be able to have these tournaments. And I think Mr. Finley tries to set a very dangerous precedence for this board because he's asking you to ignore the fact that he hasn't upheld his promises that he made to you before, but now he's going to come before this board and tell you that he has others. That's simply not, it's disingenuous. I heard what Mr. Roswell had to say, that he was going to go up and down the road and try and pick up trash. To this date, that has never happened. And I can't tell you how many folks we've had out there playing football. In fact, you'll see pictures in there, the number of cars that are up and down the driveway and in the parking lot. That also poses a problem with regard to traffic, because if you all are familiar with Williams Road, it's a very winding road. It's a road that is very narrow in a lot of places, and we've already had several accidents out on that road that have occurred there on those winding areas. The parking that he already has established is inefficient. If you will look at those pictures there, you will see that that's the number of people that already are coming to that facility and playing ball out on that field, which might as well be a public field. With regard to the noise, you have many children that are out there, their parents rooting and screaming for their children, which is certainly well within their right to do. but we as neighbors have to live there. I'm concerned that Mr. Finley wants to put in porta potties in a residential neighborhood to where his neighbors have to look outside their windows and see the porta potties. I have no confidence that Mr. Finley will be able to follow the requirements that this board puts upon him, as he's not followed the previous requirements. And so therefore, I have put forward this formal complaint and a request for rescission of his previous permit with regard to the Show Me Athletics. Even the numbers don't work. If you heard what Mr. Roswell had to say, he said that there would be approximately 6 teams, and I think pursuant to the plan that was presented to you, there's 15 per team. That's 90 children. If each one of those 90 children have 2 parents, that's 180 parents. And then that's not including grandparents, spectators, siblings, officials, etc. And in fact, there have been numerous occasions to where I have personally witnessed to where the parking was insufficient for what he has going on now, to where he allowed people to park across the street in lots that he owns and allows them to cross the street. It's frightening to me that we have children being put into that type of situation. But then more importantly, if you look at those particular pictures of all of those particular cars that are there, I have no earthly idea how a fire truck, ambulance, or any other type of emergency vehicle would be able to get up to that facility or be able to service the particular patrons. So my concern is not just for us as homeowners that are there around on Williams Road, but also for those individuals that are patrons. I've given to Mr. Demosi the actual original of my particular complaint. It does have the signatures of those particular neighbors. The ones that you all have before you were just made copies earlier, and we got those signatures this afternoon transposed onto that particular original. So you have the original.
Have the original?
Yes, you may.
Oh, okay.
I've counted on at least 3 websites, or at least 2 websites to where Mr. Finley has already advertised these particular tournaments, has given contact information with regard to it. He's already begun to clear out trees for the parking area. And if you will look at those particular photos, you will see the amount of earth that was moved as a result of him improving a field that, based upon what I've been able to research, never had a permit to begin with, other than it was to be a use for his children. But now there's been multiple teams that have been out there. We have serious concerns as a neighborhood, and we're asking that you, first of all, deny his application for the PUD, but even more importantly, we're asking that you rescind the current permit that he has for Show Me Athletics, as he is outside the regulations of the ordinances that this board entrusted to him. One of the very important things that this board actually put into their plan of action was that was to be the only business that was based at that particular property. I can tell you that if you will continue to look through your packet, you will see that there are at least 3 other businesses that are shown to be there at that property. So what I would say to you is that I would ask that you all deny his application, and furthermore, that we would ask that you would rescind the previous permit to him, as he has not acted in good faith with either his neighbors and or this board. Thank you.
Do you live adjacent to this property?
I live 2 doors down from him. Yes.
West?
Yes, west. Any other questions that you all may have? I thank you for the privilege.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Good evening. My name is Todd Myers. I live at 6800 Williams Road. I'm basically diagonally across the street from the property that was shown up in the corner. And I've got a few items too I'd like to hand out if that's okay. I don't really know these from Mr. Phillips. So, I guess from my standpoint, living across the street from the football facility, I want to emphasize that I love kids and I love baseball. This is not about whether I like kids or like baseball, it's just about the business itself that's being conducted across the street. And ever since the September approval, it's impacted our quality of life and that of other residents. One of the things that you saw in your packet, it was talking about the trash and them picking up the trash, but that's never happened. Coming out, they've had scrimmages or tournaments or whatever you want to call it during the month of February. Coming out of the tournament, a guy in a black truck sitting there watching me, standing in my yard, and throws a Zaxby's bag down right there in front of me. And, there's multiple times that I'm out there picking up trash, and it's not right. I mean, before all of this happened, we didn't have those issues on Williams Road. It was a quiet, rural street. The neighbors got along. Everybody's friendly to each other. There's more traffic now than there's ever been. I've got, the strangers that would be on there in a whole year are happening within a week's time now on that street. And, last fall, my son, who's 9 years old, was riding his bicycle on the street, which I was reasonable to do in the past, and was almost hit by a car coming out of that facility. And, they speed down the street like it's a racetrack, because I don't know if you noticed, the street has two 90-degree turns. I live right at the end of this 90-degree turn. Right when they come out of that turn, it's like the racetrack down to that driveway. And you can just hear them roaring their engines every evening from 5 to 8. And, the activities that happened 2 weekends ago where they're having these tournaments, I'm out on my tractor, running my tractor doing activities, and the noise is so loud from the park, we can hear it in our backyard even with the tractor going. But if you look at the packets that I showed you, I think one of the things was mentioned that this was made for personal use, but this shows you, these pictures, that the work was being done before that, but before it wasn't being shown as personal use. Back in October, it said SMA will be a destination point like no other. SMA will be the country club of baseball tournaments. Teams will be able to use the indoor facility before and in between games, which is totally different than the packet you received from the engineering company. And, it's basically, ask for forgiveness after you've already done something. So this wasn't put in place with the intent of personal use, just based on their own words and what they said. But at the same time, with the negativity that's affected both my family and my neighbors, I think it's important that, the regulations are out there for everybody to follow so that we all have equal protections under the county, and they haven't been. And approving this or allowing it to go further than it already has is setting a precedent that this can occur in anybody's neighborhood, anywhere in the county, and it's just not right. And, the point that I want to make sure that y'all understand is the other neighbors' quality of life shouldn't suffer because of something like this. So that's all that I have to say.
Thank you.
Rita Myers. I live diagonally across the street at 6800 Williams Road. And my concern is for my children. We like to jog, we like to ride our bike, and we like to walk up and down the road. And we are concerned about the traffic. And the other day I looked out the window and I saw my husband sitting at the end of the driveway in his vehicle. And I thought, what is he doing? And then I realized he was waiting for traffic to clear so that he could pull out of our driveway. And Williams Road is a small secondary road. We're one of those roads, when we get just a couple of snowflakes, we get out of school because it's one of those little roads. And we have two 90-degree turns. And in the time that I've lived in my house, I've seen 3 different accidents on those 90-degree turns right in front of me, not bald people, but just accidents in general, because people come up on that 90-degree turn and they're not expecting it. It's not a road that needs heavy traffic. And in one of those vehicles that wrecked, it was somebody looking at a phone, and they flipped, overcorrected and flipped upside down. It's just not a road that is meant for heavy traffic. And you know, the engineer talked about field time and this being a need. You know, my boys have played ball for 9 years. And you know, I don't ever remember having to go a month between practices. I was at some ball field at least twice a week. You know, that's how it is. And I'm not sure why they're having such a hard time finding a ball field for their team. I don't know. But that never seemed to be the issue with my son. You know, and he talked about policing the trash. The other day when he had teams out there, it was the last weekend of February, and we had a good south breeze blowing in, because you know in the springtime you get a good wind blowing. Every single time I walked outside, I picked something else up. And it wasn't in my ditch. So it's not going to help if he polices the ditches up and down the road. It blew all the way to my backyard. Some of it blew over the fence to my neighbor's yard and got caught in a tree. So now I can't even get that because it's on the other side of the fence and there's cows over there. So it's just those little inconsiderate things that we're having to deal with, and it creates a headache. You know, there's no unforgiveness or any feeling of ill will towards our neighbors. There's not. But we have to look at what we need to do to protect our own family. Our families deserve the quality of life that we had before this. And when we moved out there, we didn't move out there expecting to build a house and sell it and move somewhere else. We built our dream homes. These are our homes that we plan on staying in for the rest of our life. My house is built on family land. My kid is the 6th generation to be there, and I'm proud of that. I was the Williams before I married. And so there's pride that goes with that. And I don't want to stick a for sale sign up in my yard. But, you know, when something like this comes about, it makes you think about that. But that's all I have to say.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Jurgen Moots. My wife and I, we do not have a house on Williams Road yet. We bought property at 7135 Williams Road and 7155 Williams Road. Now, our property is located, if you were to look at a plat, 2 tracks to the right of the Finlay property. My wife and I bought our property several years ago, before the baseball field was built, and also before the large 6,000 square foot metal building was built. We found the property on Williams Road, and we fell in love with the natural beauty of Williams Road. The fact that it's a rural, quiet, tranquil place to build with very little traffic, where our kids could ride our bikes outside. That's why we fell in love with that property. We purchased it. My wife and I are now in a position where we're ready to build. However, at this point, we're having serious reservations about building our home. Now, I realize, ladies and gentlemen, that development and growth are just part of any community. I realize that. But that is the exact reason why I didn't buy a piece of property located in Murfreesboro city limits. I didn't buy a piece of property that was even a mile or 2 outside of Murfreesboro city limits. The property that I bought is about 1.5 miles from the county line. Crowds, you talk about crowds. Already, without what he's seeking approval for today, if you go out there on any Saturday, you're going to see 25 to 30 cars there. There's already a substantial amount of traffic that the neighbors on our street are dealing with. Mr. Finlay, back in 2014, when he was approved the major home business status at the previous BZA, He made a statement that there would be no more than 8 clients at the batting facility at one time and no more than 8 to 10 cars there. I can tell you right now that's not happening already. You can go out there on any evening and every weekend, and there's substantially more traffic and more cars than that right now. So tonight, I'm asking, ladies and gentlemen, members of the Planning Commission, to help protect the quality of life and the values of the citizens on Williams Road. And those values are a rural community, a quiet community, a tranquil community, and most importantly, a clean community. So please stop this PUD proposal. And while I'm on the record, I also would like to say that my signature is on the in the motion to rescind the formal BZA approval from the 2014 BZA hearing, which granted Mr. Finlay the ability to operate a major home-based business. Would ask that you rescind that as well. Thank you so much for your time and for considering our concerns. Thank you. Oh, can I say one more thing? I also have 2 other pieces of literature here showing that internet advertising for activity that's not been approved for as of yet. I'd like to turn that into Mr. Demosi.
Hi, my name is Jennifer Moots, and I'm just going to piggyback off of my husband. We are, I'll state again, 7135 and 7155 Williams Road. I'm going to try not to repeat some of the things that the other people have said, even though I completely agree with every single thing so far. I wanted to bring up some other points. One of my main concerns is safety. I think my husband mentioned that we moved out there, or we're wanting to move out there because it is in the country and it was quiet, and we have a 3-year-old and a 6-year-old that I was looking forward to just letting them play, letting them ride their bikes, and enjoy that country life. I also wanted to point out that on our property, we do have a pond, and so it kind of raises concerns for me. I understand that when you have a property with a pond that there's risk involved, and we obviously will have, have insurance on that, but when you start bringing in like hundreds of people, then that increases our risk because you don't know. I mean, they're having that many people there at a ball game. I grew up at a ball field, and we just roamed everywhere. And so that's what's going to happen. And these little kids that are not playing at the time, or their brothers or sisters, they're going to roam around, and I don't want them roaming on my property, and heaven forbid, fall in that pond. So that raises a concern for me. And then it also raises a concern for my own children, because when you bring in these travel teams, that we're bringing in people that we don't know, all these people that we don't know who they are, why they're there, and it's in our home where we live, in our neighborhood. And I'd also like to say, they mentioned about it being a need, but I want to say, even if you do think it's a need, he's not using it as a need for our community. He's going to be bringing in travel teams. They don't even live here. That's not for our community. That's for people, I don't know how far away. And I just don't agree with it for being in a country side road where all these people live and do not want it. He's already violated what you guys have set for him with the batting facility, and you better believe that if you do approve this, that he will violate anything that you said. Right now he says there's no lights. If there's going to be lights, he'll put the lights there. He'll find a way. He'll put them up and then ask for permission to put the lights up. So I kind of agree with what Michelle was saying at the beginning. I mean, it's more about credibility and about word and doing what you're supposed to or what you say you're going to do. And it's not happening now, and it's not going to happen in the future. So I would, too, like to ask that you deny the request for the PUD, and I also sign the document that you retract the original BZ or whatever it was called. Thank you.
name is Samantha Trotter, and I live adjacent property to Mr. and Miss Finley. I don't want to repeat anything. I feel like I'm in an awkward position because I am friends with his wife, and I did come forth last time in favor of the Show Me Athletics, and it is true. I mean, there are things going on. I believe that he's exceeded what he was approved for. I just have 3 concerns, and I have 3 children under the age of 5, and I am concerned about that many cars coming up and down Williams Road. I'm also concerned about how many strangers my kids are going to come in contact. My 2-year-old little boy will go up to anyone, and if they're from Kentucky, Clarksville, or anything, I'm concerned about that. Like everyone else, we moved out there for a quiet place, just a quaint life, and I thought my children fell off the swing set the other day. I did not know there was a ball game going on because I heard yelling. It caught me off guard. So there's that issue. Also, like the Moats, we have a pond, and it's a very large pond, and an 11-year-old boy did get lost the other day. And so it alarmed me because I do not want to deal with the death on my property, number 1, for the liability, and number 2, for the emotional aspect that it would send me and my husband through, and also our kids. I too am, unfortunately, I'm sorry, Anita, but I'm not going to ask you to approve this. Thank you.
Thank you. Hello.
Appreciate your time this evening. My name is Kathy Gorham, and I live at 6625 Williams Road. And I've lived on Williams Road about the entire, or a major portion of my life. My grandfather purchased property on Williams Road before the Great Depression. For anybody that's here that remembers that, was a child, grandparents, pass it on through. Okay. I think we're the most gray-headed people in here. I was raised up on that farm. I worked hard on that farm. I picked up rocks, hauled hay. I was quite a tomboy back in my youth. But I left the farm, went to school at UT, became a nurse, married, moved off the farm for a while, and then I came back because I wanted to keep that old place going. And it's a rural community there on Midland. It's a beloved place, has a long history there. My husband and I continue to live now on a portion of that farm. And where our property is behind the Finley development. And of course, Williams Road, as has already been mentioned, but to just exaggerate on that just a little, it's a secondary country road. It's not a street, y'all. It is a road. It has no speed signs. It has no curve signs. And I see our road commissioner sitting back there, and you know, we've operated that way as long as I've lived off that little road, and we're still going along. It has no shoulders, but it has those 2 defined 90-degree turns on it, and there's been more and more people that's been going off of those turns into the barbed wire fence, into a gate, into the regular fencing wire. Thank heavens nobody's been hurt yet, but I well expect it to happen. This area is agricultural. Ain't too much of Rutherford County left that's agricultural anymore, and a lot of what we even have in Midland isn't agricultural anymore. But we do, by gosh, still have some row crops out that way. We have hay, we have livestock, we've got woodlands, and we've got all kinds of wildlife that run out through there. A lot more than what we used to see back when I was a kid. We have a lot more wildlife that's moved into our area. And yes, there are more homes on Williams Road than there were when I was a child, but this location is not conducive to ball tournaments with 225 people plus utilizing where a ball field is. I think that'd be about an acre or a little bit more or less of ground at a time. There's a large pond, which has been mentioned already, but you need to know that it's immediately behind the Finally development. Yeah, there's a fancy fence there, but when you're a little kid and there's plenty of tree limbs, you know how to climb over. And it's a depot pond because the family that expanded on that pond was my family. And the deep end of that pond, when it was dug better than 12 foot deep. There are trees, there's ditches, there is an unprotected culvert that's there on the Finally development that goes across that road. Oh, excuse me. I'm sorry. It's not safe for children to be wandering around unattended out there. Prior to his development, this ground, or that particular property where he has his development and his house, it would stand in water until the driest part of summer. And any of y'all from Rutherford County know when that is. July, August. Now that's when that ground would get dirt dry. But before that, it'd be muddy, and it still is, sir. It serves that area as a water runoff for the property back behind it. And I know that well because I've fished in that pond and I have been all over that ground. And even though he's done all of the dirt hauling in and all of the big time rock movement, that water still flows through there. And the way he has placed that large amount of gravel and all of that dirt, it's making the water more of an issue. And I was on the phone today with the EPA people, and I think somebody's supervisor is supposed to be here this evening. The large mounds of dirt, we can see them from our house, and our house sits a good distance back behind the Finally property. But the water continues to flow, and it's going to continue to flow through the Finally property going on to others' land. And there's one of the ditches that's running there beside his private drive that goes up to the batting facility, that there's a natural ditch that's done running the length of that driveway. And it's nothing that he manicured with all the fancy landscape. It's done running down through there, and I know by experience that that natural ditch is going to do nothing but get bigger because the water is going to continue to flow. Traffic is a strong deterrent, which has already been said, but the number of vehicles, when you think about what he's talking about, the folks that's coming to the ball tournaments, you're thinking about maybe 1,800 vehicles rolling down that little road through the tournaments alone. Not even thinking about the batting facility. And of course, it's done been addressed, the number of vehicles that we see. The noise, I do not have any desire to listen to the yelling, screaming, announcements, ball game calls, the assortment of vehicles, and we have some loud vehicles in Rutherford County, and outside too, that's coming and going all day long. This is not the quality of life that I desire for my retirement years. That's not what I bargained for living on Williams Road. I like to listen to the geese and the birds and the peace and quiet. I love the peace and quiet. It's very content. This extravagant development is not appropriate in this rural setting. It is setting a precedent for this county and especially in this little community of Midland. How many other PUDs are there like this currently pending that y'all have already done, just like this one that's being requested? It may be what he wants, Mr. Finley, for his profit, for his fun, for his recreation, but this is not a Field of Dreams movie, and I bet some of y'all have seen that. Ball fields for skilled training, tournaments need to be at recreational facilities or at schools so proper security and oversight can be maintained. You need people there watching over them little young'uns. And a lot of times they're parents because they can fuss and argue and get in the biggest fights over who's winning and who's losing, who's lying, who's telling the truth. We know that. We've been there. Midland does not offer that type of recreational places like the Crescent Bar Field, like over on Rockvale, Eagleville. They're manicured recreational areas, and neither can or will Finley's development offer what those specified areas do. And the other issue, and I'll be very brief with that, is Mr. Finley approached my husband and I several times wanting to buy a small little section of property next to him. And he wanted to have it so he could run his septic system off of the batting facility. I said to my husband, we can just leave it alone. It's not bothering anybody. But Mr. Finley, in all of his graciousness and all of his sweet talk, told us how it would benefit the children. And he would just be having it for the children around his children's school and a small amount of kids and people. We still hesitated, but we wound up, we did sell an acre and .72 tenths to him over on the west side of the property. And he's not doing what he says he was going to do with that facility. And yes, sir, I'm looking at you right in the face. And no, sir, you didn't do what you said you was going to do. And as far as I know, you still hadn't even got the septic system's final approval. And you're using it with those little children. I saw them use it the night we were over there at that neighborhood meeting. And I wanted to say to you then, sir, that I was very disappointed in you. And I'm saying it to you right now, because you took off and left right after that meeting, but you're sitting here now. And I thank you all for your time, but as you can tell that I'm very opposed to this. And I love Rutherford County, and I want us to keep what little bit of country that's left. Thank you. Thank you, sir.
Let me remind folks of our 3-minute guideline.
I'm Kelly Williams. I live at 6900 Williams Road, directly across the street from the Finleys. I'll try to make this short and sweet. There's others still waiting to talk, but I do want to start by saying I love baseball. I spent countless hours and hundreds of miles carrying our children all over Rutherford County and beyond to play ball. And that was when we decided to build our house. And we did not build it beside a ball field. We went to a rural area. We built on a family farm that has been in my husband's family for generations. We wanted the quiet home life away from all the busyness of the city and of the recreation areas. We were excited when Scott and Anita decided to build out there because they are the fourth cousin to build on that family farm. The excitement started to fade when we realized that Scott was putting up a ball field without so much as saying, hey, do you want to look at this every time you leave your house? But what's done is done. We went on. The next thing you know, here's a humongous metal building that was built without a permit, and then he came to ask for forgiveness for that. He has not followed the guidelines that were set forth then. We count as many as 27 or 30 cars at a time on a regular basis. There is no buffer between their property and ours. Somebody else was talking about liability and safety issues. On our farm, we have several sinkholes and underground caves. There's already been an 11-year-old boy that disappeared from that ball field. We don't want to be liable if someone gets lost on our property. We don't want to have to go through the emotional turmoil of a child getting hurt or lost on our property. When there is overflow parking that doesn't fit in the area that he has, Show Me Athletics, the overflow is in an empty field beside our property. The trash. There is trash in our yard every time there's a ball game out there. Right now, there's a chair sleeve that's been in our yard for over a week that we've just left to see when it's going to be picked up. It's still there. I guess as a mother, I want things out there that are good for the children. I want things out there that are going to benefit our children. This is not made to benefit our children. This is made to bring travel teams in. This is meant to bring in people that are strangers to our community. We want the quality of life that we built our home for. We want to live in a nice, quiet, rural area surrounded by family.
Anyone else?
Guess what? I'm for it. Okay? So, where I live at 2120 Richard Garrett Drive. It's a neighborhood that backs up to Williams Road. Okay, now if you say that that's not the neighborhood, it is the neighborhood.
We need name and
Chris
address.
Prince.
I'm sorry?
Chris Prince. 2120 Richard Garrett Drive.
Thank you, Mr. Prince.
Okay? If you go down Richard Garrett Drive, it's a 90-degree turn, and my house is right there at the 90-degree turn. What did I do this weekend? When my child was outside playing, I had to put up cones that said, "Children at play, please slow down." It wasn't because there was a ball facility in the neighborhood. All right? Now, here's what I feel strongly about. If you can approve a corporate event facility and a wedding facility, and you deny our kids this facility, something's bad wrong with this picture. All these people that say they can't find a place to go play ball, I mean, they're trying to point a finger and say, well, they can't find a place to go play ball? No, we can't. My kid was on a travel ball team. All right, and I see some, what I don't understand is people out here, they're just so, the animosity, I mean, they're sitting here laughing at me and shaking their head. Why? My kids, when we were on travel ball, did we have to travel? Yeah, we did. Because guess what? There was not a facility around in our part of Christiana. All right, so I mean, it's amazing to me that you can sit here and talk about a facility like you guys are talking about it as if it was some strip joint. I mean, you're sitting here saying picking up trash. If you can't, when I go to Disney World, kids walk on my feet. I mean, they trample on me. If I go to the park, they trample over me. Do I get upset? No. I say, hey, we're here for them. If you can't pick up a couple pieces of trash because a kid was out there having a good time, I mean, come on. I think you guys should really reconsider some of your hatred, I guess. So.
My name's Keith Lamont. I live at 6805 Williams Road. If you look up in the top, I would be in that recess on the right top corner, adjacent on two sides. The topic's come up several times today, and I'm going to try not to repeat anything anybody else has said, but we've talked about buffer. How much room you think I have from my property to that baseball field? The physical metal post for the baseball field. How much room do you think I have? I've got 3.5 inches. Not 3 feet, not 30 feet. I have 3.5 inches. I've got pictures in here. I don't have enough for everybody, but I'll pass them around, and I've got a tape measure that shows the distance from the fence to the post. So we talk about buffer and how important it is. I'm going to pass a couple around. I've got none. I've got no trees to block it. And guys, honestly, I don't want to look out my back door and see porta-johns. I've also got 5 inches of standing water in my side yard now. Initially, if you notice and you read the original petition that they asked the neighbors to sign, I initially signed it. But I misunderstood. I thought it was just something minor, something small, and it's grown to be something way bigger than that. Something that I really don't care for. So, you know, I love Scott and Anita, but I don't want that in my backyard. I don't want to see porta-johns. I love baseball. I've coached baseball since my son was 3 years old. He's 9 now, 2 seasons a year. I've coached probably 200 ball games. We still play. 9 and 10-year-old Rangers at NBA. Go Rangers. So I understand wanting to have a place for your kids, and we'll go out in the side yard, and I've got some of these rubber bases, and I'll step them off, and we'll play in the yard. But at the end of the day, I pick them up, and I mow my yard. And I try not to be an inconvenience or a nuisance to my neighbors. So I wish there was some way, and I don't know what I need to do to go back and take my name off the original petition, but I'm not in favor of this. Thank you, guys.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Keith Williams. I live at 6900 Williams Road. I am directly across from Disneyland. I want to shift gears a little bit here. I could go on and on talking about trash and traffic. As my wife said, there's trash in my yard right now that I've just left to see how long it gets picked up. I do want to start by saying that I am 100% in for the revocation that we have submitted tonight. Based on all of the violations that they've done. It was very clear in that last meeting that they would have one business, not a small business, a major home-based business. Yeah, we got it. Instead, what we have is a hair salon operating out of the house. I don't really feel that that's even licensed or health inspected. We have a home construction company being ran out of the house. I witnessed cars at the beauty salon. I witnessed cars in the driveway, leaving down, going to the lots that are for sale. That wasn't going to happen. A previous business, Rytech Water Restoration, that was not going to be on the property. It was out by the property in the gym for the better part of 3 months. All of the applicants are come and do, get forgiveness, come and do, push boundaries, get forgiveness. They're not going to do what they say. They're not going to comply with what they agree to. That is a matter of fact. Everybody sitting back there can tell you that. I can go on about the trash, the porta-johns, 250, 300 people. How many porta-johns am I going to have to pull out of my driveway and look at? They're going to be like the Marines, the first in, last out. They're going to come on Thursday and leave Monday. I got to look at them half of the week. This is directly out my driveway. I'm already looking at a baseball field with salvage yard AstroTurf put down on it. Do I gotta look at Porta-Johns? The noise? Yep. That's what we listened to for 3 hours. 3 hours a couple of Saturdays ago. I finally got a Saturday off work. Actually, I didn't. I got to leave early. Wanted to come home and sit on my patio and light my grill. I went in the house. Speaking of the gentleman that was in favor of this, I want to say just real quickly, I love children's sports. I'm actively involved in scholastic clay shooting programs with a local high school. Back in 2008, there was a bunch of us that found a need to build a training facility to do this type of trap shooting and skeet shooting within the school system. We did not go in my backyard and build it and then come down here and ask you guys if it was okay. A bunch of us got together. We created a nonprofit organization, got an LLC. We got a bunch of people involved, the TWRA, every kind of people. We built a facility, a state-of-the-art facility that is over in College Grove with zero opposition. How did we do that? We did it the right way. Not go do it and then come down here and smooth it up. We're not here to talk about what's good for children or what's bad for children. We're here talking about a chaotic business being drugged down on our streets that is going to take place primarily when all of the residents that have hustled and bustled all week long want to come home and relax. That's when it's going to start. And I'm going to leave with that. Thank you.
I'm going to declare the public hearing closed unless there's one or two more that wants to speak.
My name is Jack Conger, and I live at 6068 Williams Road. I'm the first one when we go from 0 to 60. We turn off a Midland Road because we're late to the ball game, we're late to practice, all of these things. I like kids, and they're going, and it'll be a little bit, he's going to parade them through here and use the kids as a pawn. That's his MO. But I moved out there 23 years ago, bought property, because I wanted to live in a quiet neighborhood. We live in Murfreesboro on a busy street. All of that's changed due to Show Me Athletics. It's been in different stages of growth. It's been portrayed as a ball field for our local neighbor kids. That's not true. Why anybody with any brain at all knows if you build this kind of facility, you're going to have some income of some kind. I think that's what it's all about. It's all about money. It's not about kids because it went from a ball field. I've seen it from day one, from when it first started. It's been advertised as a venue for practice field, training facility, tournaments, birthday parties. You can read about it on Show Me Athletics Facebook page. The prices are clearly stated for each player, the time they use, team, and tournament. This is before we even get to the concessions part of it, which he has bragged about, the amount of money he's even going to make off concessions. Now fast forward to the reason why we're here tonight. Show Me Athletics is trying to get permission to do what they've already done, like the others said. He's already done it. He's already had ads on Facebook, the link website, United States Specialty Sports Association, advertising the ball tournament that's supposed to be played yesterday. I have never been notified, me or wife, of any of this. And I take offense for the Huddleston engineering. Why don't we discuss engineering? We're discussing what the Vine facility is and about the kids. It has nothing to do with the facility. I just don't understand. I have not had, other than seeing the sign that you people put out 10 days ago, which my understanding is supposed to be posted 2 weeks in advance. It wasn't. 10 days is the only notification I've had of anything happening out there, including the Huddleston engineering meeting including the BZA meeting, and I regret not going to that meeting. But I didn't want to cause problems in the neighborhood because I live next to Nita's dad just lives right next to me. I didn't want to cause hard feelings, but I'm tired of it. I am totally fed up with it. Prior to putting the sign out 10 days ago, it's amazing to me how all of this stuff shows up on Facebook, and there's photos that you've seen, because we've taken pictures, disappears. Ooh, all of a sudden it's gone. It's not on Facebook anymore. The link that what we was advertising for tournaments last week disappears. No activity's been out there whatsoever since the sign went up. Prior to that, 25, 30 cars. They come by my house in droves of cars come by at a time. Since the sign went up, zilch, other than 3 o'clock yesterday afternoon when he started to rally the troops. And I know you're going to be hearing all these people, he's fixing to parade them to say it's all about the kids, it's all about the kids. And all I'm asking is for you people to take in consideration of what the people that actually live on Williams Road, Threet Road, that directly affects the man that said we're all hateful and mean. That traffic don't affect him whatsoever. He can see it, maybe he can hear it, I don't know. I suppose he can, but the traffic don't affect. The traffic to me is the biggest issue. I like to ride my bike, I like to walk. I don't do that anymore. I'm afraid to even pull out of my driveway. The traffic is awful. That road is not made for that. So I would, and I'll sign the petition to get it revoked, the BZA, because anybody, and all you have to do is go to Show Me Athletics webpage, and it will prove everything that I have said. Thank you for your time.
Hello. My name's Tony Thompson. I reside at 6702 Williams Road, and my property is directly to the east of the said ball field. The short things I want to talk to you guys about is safety and quality of life. My safety issue is when I get off work in the afternoon and come home, I'll pull in the driveway at different times, 4:30, 5 o'clock, and it used to be I could pull in the driveway and stop and check my mail or whatever. Now you're trying to dive off the driveway because people are just there's so much traffic coming out that road. I mean, there's 2 or 3 cars just right on your bumper. Like you said, 0 to 60. That's about what it is. My property is right in between the 2 curves, so I've got about 1,300 feet of road frontage. Quality of life issue being trash pickup. It's horrible, really is. I do have water runoff that is on the bottom of my property, which is to the north. A lot of standing water. There has been some anyway, but now there's just a tremendous amount of standing water that just stays there. It just, it's not running. However that happened, whether he diverted that water that way, it would appear to me because it used to not be that way. So I'm tremendously opposed to this, and I hope you guys see it our way. Thanks.
Anyone else? Ron, 3 minutes. I know you, 3 minutes.
My name's Ron Williams. I don't live on Williams Road. I live about 3 miles away. 12785 is Versailles Road's my property. Have 2 or 3 things I'd like to call your attention to. First, it's a shame that Huddleston Steel wasn't involved in this in the beginning, because on the maps that I pulled up, there is a unnamed contributory to the West Fork of the Soames River that runs right across the back of this map that's here that has been filled in. I don't know how many loads of gravel that was hauled in. In talking with some of the people that did that, they said it was in excess of $20,000 worth of gravel that they dug out the ground, put this gravel in to divert the water so the field wouldn't be wet. Well, maybe Mr. You can tell us what would have happened had they come to you to try to block up this contributory to the Stones River, because it's clearly on these maps that have not been identified, because it's already been filled in. That's probably my biggest concern that has gone on here. If y'all want to do away with all the rules, I've got several acres out here. I'd be glad not to have any rules to comply with and to do some things. But if we're going to have to deal with the rules, let's deal with the rules. I don't know what can be done when somebody's already done it and have done this. I'm pretty sure that Huddleston Steel will not be able to give you an engineering done of what's been happened to this field and where everything's been filled in, because they weren't involved in it at that time. So I would just encourage you, if we're going to have rules, I used to help make some of them. You get fussed, but let's let everybody follow by the rules, and let's go in accordance with that, because what has been thought of as a field of dreams has turned into be a nightmare on Elm Street. I have one little thing I'd like to leave you with. I had a video that was, so you can understand what they're saying about Mr. Finley. This was pulled up today, and I don't know what he's doing, but today he's still on the internet advertising these businesses.
The fact that you're watching this video means that you're probably looking for a roofing contractor, and I would like to earn your business. Next Level Construction is owned by my wife, Anita Finlay, and me, Scott Finlay, and we will be at your side from start to finish. If this is an insurance claim, we will deal directly with your insurance company, so your day-to-day routine is not interrupted. And there's a good chance we can absorb your deductible so you don't have to come up with money out of pocket. You'll be surprised how easy this process will be for you. We are properly licensed and insured and guarantee you will be completely satisfied with your new roof. If you want a roofing company that has a hometown feel and offers superior service, call us now.
Anyone else? Thank you.
My name is Brian Dial. I am from Shelbyville. I am not from the neighborhood. I can feel for what's been said. I've been involved in sports all my life. Professionally, I played professionally. I just hate to see an opportunity. I have seen facilities. I have been in facilities. This facility offers something for this little group, this little neighborhood, whatever. And I understand. I'm a country boy myself, born and raised. I just want to say, I know I've been around Scott for 12 years now. I think his heart's in the right place. I know you guys have, I'm the different one out here now. I'm the second one. But I'm not just going to, I guess, stay and not tell you guys. The facility is there. It offers an opportunity for kids to learn the sport. It's managed in the right way. I know this. I've got experience. I worked for the city for 15 years as a league coordinator and also assistant director for the parks. I have seen what can happen when it's not managed correctly, and I've also seen what it can do when it is. This facility this man has built, it's second to none. I've seen it. I've been around professionally, and that's the honest truth. My children have played college ball. I played college ball. I'm a graduate from Middle Tennessee State University. Played there. Man, the facility that's at this location puts that to shame. What it offers, to tell you the problems that I've heard here tonight, I can't attest to that, and I won't. I'm not here to do that. I'm here to say, though, what I have seen and what I know has been offered there is second to none. It is really something to see, I promise you that. I just hate to see somebody not at least, I appreciate what I've seen. I don't see it very often, guys, I don't. I have seen it destroyed. So, apologize. Thank you.
My name is Gretchen Conger, and I live at 6068 Williams Road. And I want to start out by saying I do not want to be here tonight. I shouldn't even have to be here tonight. And with all due respect for the board and everybody involved in trying to run a very fast-growing Rutherford County, I feel like if we would have taken a step back at the September the 10th, 2014 meeting, none of us would be here at this point. There's not a one of us that are denying that this is not state-of-the-art, absolutely fabulous facility for young kids. We all have had kids, we have grandkids. I was blessed with a great-grandchild Thursday. That's great. We have to support the kids. We have to do what we can. Let's do it in a place where this would be appropriate for the surrounding areas. We have had to sever a 23-year-old relationship with our friends and neighbors due to Show Me Athletics. We moved out where we are 23 years ago. We lived on Hamilton Drive, a few doors down from Northfield. We didn't want to live where we heard cars coming day and night, day and night. We picked a residential area at that time that was no longer meeting our need. We moved to Williams Road. We have made our home there, tried to be a good neighbor. And on Midland Road, we are the very first house as you turn off of Midland Road. And that is not an exaggeration. 0 to 60 is not an exaggeration. I have gone from picking up a few Bud Light cans and lottery tickets to now I pick up, but you cannot go outside that you're not picking up dirty diapers, V8 juice cans. We have had sacks of party favors and wrapping paper, glass bottles thrown in our concrete driveway that we have to pick up. I want to retire soon, but it's more quiet. I'll just go to work because I can no longer come home and sit on my patio and enjoy anything because it sounds like I'm back on Northfield. We've moved to the country to be in the country. This facility would be great. All of us would be supporting it, but it does not belong on Williams Road. This is a family community, and I recorded the September 10th, 2014 proceedings that night, and I have watched and rewatched. And like I said, with due respect to everyone here, we started out my kids and their friends, my kids and their ball teams. Now we have tournaments. If we could have just taken a step back to see the ramification of what this has caused, it would not have gotten as far as it has, because it is not safe on our road. You do not dare walk on our road. You take your life in your own hands. And you certainly cannot sit on your patio if you are Midland Road and Williams Road, because there is no peace, there is no quiet. And I just ask, if this was going up in your neighborhood, how would you feel about it? We're all for the kids, or 100% for the kids. That is not the issue here. The issue is where the facility is placed and the dynamics that it has caused and the upset. It does not belong on Williams Road. If everybody wants that facility and we vote it in, let's vote one in your neighborhood. I'm telling you, you would have the same fears that we have. It is not meant for Williams Road. This is a small community road. People bought their properties to be in a small community of peace and quiet and tranquility. You do not have it, and I appreciate your time.
Thank you.
I'm Commissioner Pettis Reed from the 8th District out there, and I'll be very fast with this, as fast as I can, because I think most of the concerns have already been addressed tonight by individuals out that way as far as Williams Road is concerned. And I believe if I had received as many phone calls from other issues as a county commissioner that I have received concerning Williams Road, there might have been some different votes I might have made up here in these chairs or whatever, because I have seen numerous individuals who tried to talk to me about Williams Road, about things going on out there. And a lot of things have been addressed here tonight. Those are legitimate concerns that are out there and what we have there. Just as the lady that just spoke right before me talk about if we could go back to 2014. Well, all of us know what hindsight is, and we just can't really do that. And I spoke at that meeting in 2014. I think some of you have seen that in some of your paperwork here, right here. And at that time, I was told that there'd be no more than 8 cars at that building and what would be involved. And then just in the last week or 2 weeks or 3 weeks, I've spoke with most of everyone that's come up here tonight. I've been to a meeting over there of concerned citizens. I've met with Mr. Finley. I've met with the engineer from Huddleston Steel. I've been there and told him exactly what I thought of the facility and what is involved as far as Williams Road is concerned. There are a lot of problems that's out there as far as that road and what we're talking about here tonight. The traffic, when you're talking about a 2-day event that goes from 9 o'clock in the morning until 30 minutes before sundown, when you're talking about maybe 150 people, I think we discussed that day out there, it could be as many as 150 people there, changing game times, traffic going in and out. That's a lot of things that are happening right there on that road, and I do have a problem with that. You know, when cities have festivals, you're talking about an event one time during the year, where you're talking about 6 of these, I think right now, 6 or 8. And there were more of that at the original presentation that was given here. That's a lot for that rural road that you have there and for that rural community. Somebody mentioned here a little while ago that that was his Field of Dreams. Well, the Field of Dreams, I think all of you have seen that, but it was located within a cornfield. And there's a cornfield all the way around, and the other good part about it, it was in Iowa, I guess is what you'd have to look at too. Well, the thing is, those individuals who live around this in their homes, that's their Field of Dreams as well. Their Field of Dreams is coming home to a patio out back and a grill and maybe doing some steaks and enjoying a Saturday afternoon without a baseball field or a large crowd happening all around them. I can understand that. I have 43 acres, and I think the same thing would bother me too if I had to deal with that. So there is a problem that's there. It's a top-notch facility, as someone has said here. I stood there and looked at it. I played baseball. I played Little League. I played third base, and Ronald Williams was up here a while ago. He was a catcher on a high school baseball team. And then we played Dixie Youth League. So I know what it is to get out there and play like that. But you know, to have Williamsport, Pennsylvania sitting right in the middle of where you live is a little different in what we have to deal with right here. I brought up here our Rutherford County Comprehensive Plan that I'm quite proud of. I was on this commission right here with you when we passed that. And within that, we had several different goals. And goal number 3 was in that to strengthen rural communities, which says protect visual qualities that contribute to a positive experience when entering rural communities. And I think that's something we have to look at and have to address whenever we're having to decide on these things. It's your decisions tonight, and I'll leave it from there.
Someone else coming up to speak. It appears that we're beginning to repeat ourselves a little bit. We've heard a lot of input, and anyone that has something new to say, we'll stay here all night. But we would like to begin to wrap this thing up and start making some decisions. So I'm sorry to interrupt you. Sir, would you state your name and let's go.
Excuse me. My name is Herman Williams. I do not live on Williams Road, but I am the next to the oldest Williams descendant of the people who owned the farmland in the beginning. Actually, my great-great-grandmother, my grandmother, my dad, and then myself were literally born in the old farmhouse in a back room. I was not born in a hospital. I was born on that farm, you know, and most of that land has been given to the grandkids to come and build a house out there with the agreement that this would be the last house that they'd ever want to build. My mother is 87 years old, and the agreement that all of those grandkids made was, hey, no spec houses. You go build your spec houses. You live anywhere you want to live. And whenever you're ready to come back to the farm, you've got a spot of land. And she has done that. And I'm glad she did, because she's got 4 great-grandkids there. I mean, they're great in that they are grandkids. She has 4 of them. I don't know. I'd have to count on my fingers how many great-grandchildren that are there, you know, and she loves it. They go to her house, they play, you know, but the Field of Dreams is not a vision that I don't feel that she ever had, you know. We've not said anything to our mother about this, you know. She's 87 years old. We don't talk about it, you know. It may be a family thing, but it's kept away from her, you know. And I just like to ask you, all these people got up here, they moved out there because they've got 10, 12, 15, 30 acres of land. They went out there for a reason. And as my former classmate, Pettis Reed, we spent 4 years at Rockwell, go Rockets, same class. I sat behind him. Me and Mike Williams, your past road commissioner, we could sit there and throw spitballs at Pettis. He never knew what was coming. But in all sincerity, I just want to say thank you, Pettis. I also would like to ask y'all, don't do this. Leave it, the family farm. Leave it a place that all the grandkids, great-grandkids can go home and enjoy themselves at the end of the day or the end of the week. I thank you for your time.
Thank you. You want to have anything else? Anyone? I'll declare the public hearing closed. Commissioners?
I would like a little clarification. There's been several people talking about revoking or a recession of the BZA approval, but that's the BZA. This is the Planning Commission. You can correct me if I'm wrong. We don't have the authority to do that.
No, sir, you don't. You're correct. And let me just kind of walk through what that process would look like. When we get a formal complaint, of course, the first thing we do is we investigate the complaint. Now, I'm going to speak in generalities here. So the first thing we do is investigate the complaint. If the complaint is found to be valid, then the applicant or the person who's the subject of the complaint, they are given an opportunity to come into compliance with their approval. After working with the applicant, if that doesn't happen, if it's not possible, at that point, then we can initiate procedures to have a special exception revoked at the Board of Zoning Appeals. But you're correct, this board, nor the Board of Commissioners, has the ability to revoke an action done by the Board of Zoning Appeals. It's a totally separate board.
The next question is for Mr. Hughes. If the applicant has gone out there and filled a tributary without permission, I know getting in any kind of drainage structure is a strict no-no in today's time. What are the repercussions? Is that something that can be looked at outside of these proceedings here tonight?
Well, it can be reported to the state, and there are fines associated with that. If this were to come to us at an onset where we were looking at a plan, we would usually require something this to this extent, need a stream buffer to protect the stream and any tributaries to it. So it was, you're not supposed to fill them in the simple answer.
There's a staff recommendation. Do you guys want to hear that before you make a decision? If you have not had a chance to read it?
Well, I mean, as you said, our staff recommendation is as reported in the report. We did recommend denial for the reasons that were for a lot of the reasons that were stated in our staff report. First of all, we had concerns about whether there was going to be adequate parking on the property. The second, and probably the largest concern, I would say, is the fact that we just weren't convinced that this really fit in with the area and met all the criteria of planned development rezoning. We just didn't feel that it did. So again, my recommendation is just that. You are not bound by that, but that was what staff's recommendation was.
The 3-paragraph recommendation is pretty much saying that the concern is that the proposed level of activity goes beyond what was originally discussed at BZA. The proposed use may not be compatible with the surrounding area. Williams Road is more rural, and in the staff's opinion, the activity level proposed may be more in line with the suburban belt or the general urban area. Staff is not also convinced that there will be adequate parking for the number of people attending tournaments, and under no circumstances should parking be allowed along Williams Road. It's the staff's opinion that the applicant may be trying to conduct more activity on the site than that site can reasonably handle. So the staff has also raised some environmental concerns, and the staff recommends denial. In case you guys didn't have the chance to read that, it's on page 3 of 4 of your homework.
Mr. Chairman, this reminds me of, which I think maybe Craig, yourself, and I are the only ones who were here when the Mustang football thing came around 12 or 13 years ago, I guess now. And it was a great idea for helping the children, but it was in absolutely the wrong place. It was out in the middle of nowhere, and that was turned down. And for these same reasons, I wish the applicant had spent this money and built this facility in an appropriate location so the children get the use of it, but it's just the wrong place. And the procedure was not followed. I would hope that the county engineer will follow through with somebody looking at that field and waterway, and hopefully there can be some way that can be remedied. But with that, I'll make a motion to deny the application.
I will second that.
Have a motion to deny and a second for item number 16-A002. Any other discussion?
Chairman, I would like really to address the audience in attendance. First of all, I commend you. It takes courage, to come up before a government body like this. It even takes an extraordinary amount of courage to come up and put friends versus friends, neighbors versus neighbors. And I'm sad that this was the position you all were put in, but I commend you for your rights to come and speak and voice your opinion. So congratulations, and you should applaud yourself for that. And lastly, I have zero sympathy for somebody that ignores regulations and rules that are put forth by county government, and I'm appalled by that. So again, I'm disgusted, and I have no sympathy for the applicant who did what he did without permission.
All those in favor of the motion to deny, please say aye. Is there any opposition? The motion carries unanimously. This will go before, there will be a final hearing before the Rutherford County Commission in this room Thursday night, April the 11th, 6 p.m. And the recommendation to deny will come from this body. It is April the 14th. Thank you. I've got a calendar in front of me and can't even read it. One young lady out there said she was looking forward to retirement. I've been there 5 years. I highly recommend it. Anything else? Doug, any staff reports?
Just very briefly, I believe there were letters on your tables today from a consolidated utility district regarding a lunch and learn. I don't have my letter right in front of me, but it was in April, I believe it was on a Tuesday, regarding water capacity in Rutherford County, I believe. You're encouraged to sign up for that. So.
April the 12th at 11 o'clock.
That sounds about right, yes, sir. At CUD's building on New Salem Highway.
Our next meeting is scheduled for Monday, the 28th of this month, 9 a.m. in the Planning Mez. You also have in front of you our monthly building codes report. Anything else from the commission? Thank you. We are adjourned.